There's a posture that we have to set. We just don't go, okay, we're just going to walk back in the door and pick up where we left off. Because there is a time, there's a gap in the process of you being gone. So it seems like that the house and the children, the wife, maybe the mother-in-law, the family, they've moved on without you, and there's some bitterness there. There's some things in there. So the person that wants to come back, there is a posture that you have to set. And then when you come back in that home, there's a time of quietness. And what I mean by that is you don't come back in and just start, going off at the mouth and trying to set things straight and all that kind of stuff, because you've got to earn your place back again, even though
there are things I don't see clearly.
So the person that wants to come back, there is a posture that you have to set your heart to, and that is a posture of humility. To be able to say, you know what, I was wrong. To be able to say, I made a mistake. To be able to say, I didn't do everything right, and I'm looking in the mirror. As the song goes on, I'm looking at the man in the mirror, right? And I'm trying to make a change, but in order to make a change, there is the heart of humility. You've got to come back. And I'm not talking about you got to come back all broken down and defeated, but I'm talking about humility, to be able to say, I messed up. I made a mistake. I did some things wrong. I did some things that were unseemly. And then when you come back in that home, there's a time of quietness. And what I mean by that is you don't come back in and just start, going off at the mouth and trying to set things straight and all that kind of stuff, because you've got to earn your place back again. Even though your place is still there, there's a trust that has to be built. And the trust that has to be built comes from humility. It comes from love. It comes from a heart change from your own perspective. And if that heart and humility hasn't changed, what you're going to do is you're going to come back home. That woman or that man's going to be waiting on you, and you're going to cause destruction all over again because of lack of humility. Why is humility important?
Oh, so you can be receiving. You have to have a heart to receive. And my heart posture, I know everybody's story is going to be different.
Yeah,
everybody's going to be different. So let's put that out there right now.
Right.
This is our story.
Right. This is us.
Get what you can from it and whatever. But this is who we are. But my thing was posturing my heart was love, love, love. Mm-hmm. That's what God said to lead with. And so as you're leading with love, those things of humility will also take place. Because that love is kind of like a tenderizer to the heart.
Yeah, it's like a meat tenderizer. Yeah.
Yeah. Where
okay, I get that.
You start, yeah, because you had humility when you came back. But I wonder if I never loved and decided to posture my heart to love the way God, it's only because God, influenced me, of course, to do that. He was all in
right,
me.
because we know if God wasn't involved, that type of heart that you had would have never happened.
Yeah. And so with that, it caused a ripple effect, like we talked about. And I think you could have come back with humility better than if I would just had a hardened kind of disposition towards him. Even though he probably wanted to come back, it's still like, what I got to deal with, So I know that would have been hard. But yeah, I think we should move forward, though, and just kind of get into where we began and all this journey.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and let you start where we began since you opened it up.
Okay. So we're going to do this in segments. It's a story. It's a long story, but also through it, we want to encourage and answer any questions that people have that we can help along the way. So we'll go ahead and get into it.
So if you have any questions as we get into it, you can reach us in the comments. So just add any questions you have in the comments, because it's going to be on YouTube and also on our Instagram page, which is Uncommon Love 2021. Again, and Uncommon Love 2021 on Instagram. So if you have questions there, you can reach us there as well. Otherwise, it's Uncommon Love on YouTube, and then reach us in the comments there.
Just saying.
Yes.
All right.
Go ahead.
So I guess we'll start with when you left.
Okay, so I left in 2016. That was, what month was that?
March.
March 2016. So you want to go through the whole segment the whole time?
I don't know, kind of we're going to pop in the other pieces, right? So we're going to have to talk to those pieces. So we need to play that piece. Yes.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, we actually have quite a few. We actually have some other recordings that we're actually going to play in here and talk about our different in our journey, what has happened. If you want to hear even more from my standpoint, you can go to I'm Dealing With on YouTube, and you can look at the episode where it's talk about an imperfect man. Okay, and check that out, because there's like 3 or 4 different episodes, but the one is called The Final, the restoration of a man, final. But I really go into this deeply about me leaving, as well as coming back, and actually God restoring our marriage. But as she stated and alluded to, yes, I left in March 2016. And again, there was a lot of things that had transpired leading up to that. As I stated before, some of those recordings, I had dealt with some pain, I've dealt with some agony, dealt with a lot of loss, and truthfully, some serious bitterness. Oh yeah, your boy was bitter about a few things, and I held it against my wife. Even though there are some things that I think I could have been better at. Oh yeah, I could have been better at a few things, but it's always one of those things where it's a straw that breaks the camel's back, right? And because I didn't deal with some of those things, and some of those things were even things from my past. Because anytime you don't deal with some of those things from your past, especially men, we sweep them under the rug and then think everything's going to be good. The sad part about it is later on in life, those dead things we thought were dead, decide to rise up later on and come into your future. And those things did come into my future and caused me to make some unseemly decisions. And in 2016 of March, I did leave. I ended up moving out, grabbed all my things, and had an apartment ready. And I actually planned it out. I did. And this goes right back to what I was saying, is making unjustified decisions. And I moved out, had my own apartment, and then start furbishing that apartment. And, I'm still trying to be in my children's life and call them and things of that sort. But there are some things that happen in that dispensation of time. Me leaving, me having a conversation with my children before I even left to let them know what was going on. I also and here's the other thing. I didn't tell them that the reason why I left, your mama did this and your mama did this and your mama did. I didn't do that. So for those of you that are battling in situations right now, and you have third parties involved, which is your children, the last thing you want to do about anything is blame a situation on the spouse, because that child has a relationship with their mother. That child also has a relationship with the father. So don't put the children in the middle of the thing. And even though I did speak to them and let them know, this is not your mom's doing, this is my decision. Again, this goes back to, there was a ripple effect that happened. Because then when they go to, all of a sudden, I'm in the home basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that all of a sudden they're used to coming home and seeing dad. Or they're home and dad comes home and, there's a man in the house. And when that man is no longer in the house, there is an effect. When that woman is no longer in the house, there is an effect that happens. There's a ripple effect that causes children to start questioning even their own identity. And many times they start having an identity crisis, not if they're a woman, not if they're a guy, but they start questioning, can I be loved? Is the person that I might meet up with later on going to leave me? They start going through all these different things and factors. And then not only that, if the woman or man of the house ends up leaving, guess who ends up trying to pick up the slack and take place of that person who left? It's the children. That girl is trying to be the mother. That boy is trying to be the man of the house all of a sudden, when in actuality, that wasn't his job. That was not his role. Their role was to be children. Their role was not to pick up the slack. So there was a lot of things that happened and transpired in me leaving. And in my mind, because of where my mind was at the time, hey, we good, right? We have a great relationship, right? You still love me, right? A lot of things going on, right? But, I got your back, oh yeah, Dad, we love you, da, 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 da. But there was a lot of secret things that were going on that they didn't tell me about.
But honey, would you express to everybody, like, where was your heart at when you were leaving or before you left or upon leaving?
So, and in me leaving, she talked about where my heart was then. My heart, like I said, my heart was like a brick. I mean, a heart is supposed to be pliable. Mm-hmm. A heart is supposed to be something that you can touch, something that's soft, something that can be molded and blended and loving. And I was a brick. My heart, my mind, because of the bitterness that I had a lot of bitterness toward her. I was upset. I got tired of talking about some of the same things over and over again and this, that, and the other. And I was just so upset. I was just ready to roll. I didn't care who approved me leaving. I didn't care who liked it, who didn't like it. I was just ready to go. And in my going, there is that complete ripple effect that happens. There's a ripple effect for your children, mm-hmm. for your family in the home, and for the extended family and families that love you. And it hurts. It hurts. Not you at first. At first, it don't hurt you because you're bitter, right? You got a brick, right? You don't care. You don't care what anybody else has to say. But the people that love you are hurting. The people that loved your family are hurting. The people that loved your wife is hurting. And you hurt a lot of people based upon decisions because our heart is hardened. Mm-hmm. The sad part about it is when that heart becomes pliable again, all the hurt that you put out there, all the demise you've put out there, all the ones that were hurt by the circumstances, hurt by the decisions that you've made, that comes back to you multiplied. You've heard about, about this sower, the seed, right? You sow a seed in the ground, you reap branches, and off these branches you reap fruit, and off these you see a whole lot of fruit on these branches off of one seed. So imagine when you start making these rash decisions of putting that certain seed in the ground. You sowed one bad thing by making a bad decision, but you've affected so many people. And what happens is you later on reap the fruit of that, and it comes back exponentially more than what you put in the ground.
And that's good, because on the standing side, same thing can happen.
Yeah.
How you start, how you decide to respond. Mm-hmm. You can either respond in a negative or a positive way. Okay. It can be reversed, negative, but you want to respond positive, especially if God has put it in your heart. Okay, wait, stand for your marriage. See what I can do. Mm-hmm. You don't want to sit there and sow seeds of discord, because that will continue to fester until you stop it. And then you still have to repair and damage. And of course, God can do that, but it just delays things. And so while you had that heart, it was funny because months before that, I knew something wasn't right, and it was like, okay, Lord, I need you to help, because whatever we've been trying to do all these years. So at that point, it'd been 18 years of marriage. It wasn't all bad, but this particular instance in time and season, it just seemed like so heavy. And I'm like, okay, I want more though for my marriage. At this point, we're at this age now. I want more. Like, the kids are getting older. What are we going to have when they're gone? So I started seeking God outside of him knowing it, although we both had our relationships with God, but just more. And I surrendered. I was like, I just surrender my marriage to you finally, instead of me trying to control it, me trying to fix it, me trying to make it right. God, I fully 100% surrender that to you. And I really feel like that played a part in what happened and transpired. Even though you had choices, you know how they say God works everything out for the good. Even though he left, he took that and still worked it out for the good for what I had prayed for. And that was even restoration before him leaving. How can you make us better, God? Because I know we're supposed to be in ministry. I know we're supposed to be doing better. And how are we going to be a good product to our children and to others if we're in this space?
Yeah.
And so upon leaving, my heart was different. I was more already open to like whatever it takes. And oh boy, was it whatever it took, because God was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Well, here we go. Here starts your journey. And so even though I'm there constantly trying to be the best wife and all this, and my heart was different, but I also find out that's interesting how God works. And sometimes we don't see it until we've been through our process or later on. But he was already positioning my heart for what was to come. Because he left and I had a hard heart. He had a hard heart. I wonder if we'd be where we are today, or what that would look like.
I'm probably going to say, probably not. But for the grace of God. And
Yes.
the reason why I say that, because, we always say that we believe God. We can believe God for a car. We believe God for debt cancellation. We believe God for a house. We believe God for the healing of cancer. We believe God for this, that, and the other. But what about believing him for actually a restoration of your marriage? How many really believe that? And the issue with that is the simple fact is we use certain things. If certain things happen, God can't do it. If this happens, you would know my story. But yeah, I actually not just left. I left and ended up with somebody else, ended up marrying, and God still had to get a hold of me in the midst of all that. And while I'm going through that and God's dealing with my heart, on my end, God's dealing with her on the other end, because she is hearing and seeing and being told and phone calls and text messages about everything I got going on.
Not all of it.
Well, most of it. But
I wasn't on social media
no.
at all.
But again, she's getting phone calls.
I'm getting the telephone calls.
Yeah, so she's getting the messages and probably screenshots or something like that, whatever. But the point of it is if in fact she was standing, because many of us will say that if this happens, we're done. If God's not, there's no way. Well, I tell you what, but when you really trust God enough, and then for us, men or women, those have left, when we actually trust God enough and actually, let me say this, and listen to the voice of the Lord. Number one, he's not going to steer you wrong and cause you to do something, stupid that, well, then again, I can't say that, because my process was, it made no sense, and because in all honesty, we find reasons, especially those of us who are Bible based, who know the scripture, we will look for every scripture to justify where we are. Or we'll look for every scripture to not get out of the bad situation we put ourselves in. And we'll say, oh, no, this is not God. But let me tell you, I have yet see God do something in a person's life that makes sense to the person. It's always something. There's a requirement upon your life. There's a requirement for you to do. And when you listen to the heart and the voice of the Lord, then he brings deliverance. But there's a requirement. My requirement was I had to listen. And what he told me to do in my mind, in my natural, my finite mind. And, we pretend, we think we know more than God. We look at the scripture, well, this ain't God. Well, I tell you what, the Lord had to reach me and tell me to do something that to the natural man doesn't make sense.
And same here.
Right, because the Lord was telling her, in the midst of my foolishness, you're going to keep on standing.
Yeah.
And
you're not going to date anybody. You're not going to take your ring off. You are married. Mind you, there's this, I call it the fake ceremony, because God doesn't honor more than one covenant. So as long as me and God is a threefold cord, so me, God, and my husband were that, right? He walked away, but me and God didn't. And God said, I honor your covenant because of that. And therefore, it's not broken. So imagine having, though, to stand through that, knowing he went and tried to put a ring on somebody else's finger. But God's like, I don't honor that. So I had to stand, though, on that, and people looking like, you are absolutely lost your mind. You're crazy. There's no way. You can move on. You can do better. But God.
Exactly.
is what was my focus. You can't tell me something because I've seen already by that time the manifestation of some things that God had already done in my life during my stand. And I could not deny those things, and I could not deny God's work. So whoever was trying to talk in my ear, that wasn't going to happen, because I already knew I come this far. There's no way. He said his word will not come back void. He said that he had this. He does not make promises he cannot keep. So I had to continue to let that speak in my ear. Let that be first, and all the noise shut out. The circle was small because of that.
Yeah, and you know what? You will find that when you decide to do what's right, there's gonna be some people that will start with you. And then that circle gets smaller and smaller, and it goes from just a few to hardly none. And then when God actually shows up and actually does the miraculous and really restores, it's amazing how some of the godly people that started with you, that didn't stay with you, they're surprised of what God can really do when you really stand not for God, not just for your marriage, but you stand on his word. Because, it's hard when, you're trying to do something that God asked you to do, and you have these so-called friendships and associations that look at you crazy and tell you to give up. Oh, this has happened. It's been 6 months. Girl, move on. Guy, move on. It's been a year. Move on. It's been 2 years. Move on. It's time for you because this is not going to be done. You can do better. And all of a sudden, but when God shows up, I'm here to let you know that even though you're going through the season in your life, whatever season that is, maybe somebody's on the verge of leaving, or they're talking about leaving, or they're just throwing that out there, or maybe they've been gone for a minute. For those of you that have already left, for those of you that are standing, it's a season. You have to be able to listen on both ends, whether you left or whether you're standing. You have to be able to listen to the voice of the Lord.
And even if you don't know God,
that too. Yes.
Not everybody does, and we understand that.
That's true.
But God is no respect of persons at the same time.
Exactly.
If this is something you desire, he might have spoken to you and you don't even know who he is, but you're like, where did that little voice come that says I need to stand? Do it. It's him. Nothing that is good comes from the enemy.
You got that right.
It may be a facade.
Yes.
It might try to look like it's good, but let's think about it. If we really think about the whole situation in itself, it's like, oh no, there's some bad parts in that. He makes it look good, but we know God has the best interests of us. And he said, I do not. He says, I hate divorce in this word.
He does.
He does. And he's for marriage and he's for family. So if God is telling you and tugging at your heart, even though you may not have that relationship that we might have or other people might have with God, it's okay. Get to know him. He's so good. He's great. He's funny. And he'll surprise you. It's just amazing.
I was just getting this little blurb. So, I'm sorry, I call it a download. So I'm getting this download. And as she's speaking, there are many of you that are going to be listening and watching this video. And you know of people who have, as we would like to say, started over. I mean, really, why? What was the reason that caused some of them to start over completely? When in actuality, you have everything you need. And now granted, I understand that there's physical abuse, there's damage, there's hurt, somebody tried to kill. I get that. I understand that. But let me tell you, who is God? Man is man. But who is God in your life? Maybe you don't know God, but you have an idea of who God is. But my question is, what is God to you to where you can say that he cannot do it? Because my scripture lets us know that he can do exceeding abundantly above all that we can ever ask or think. And if we were putting down into the vernacular, he can do more than you can ever even imagine. Even the crazy thoughts that you have, he's better than that. He can do above and beyond all that. And you know what? There's going to be a lot of people that'll say, you know what? That was just kind of a one-off, that happened. But you know what? If you seek him, if you listen, if you love him, if you humble yourself, he can do it in every single life if they were to really listen.
For us.
And if my friend
Well, I think that's great, babe. I think we need to come back and talk more. Let us know what you want to hear too. We're going to try to share our whole story through this, but it's a long one, and so we want to do it and give it justice as well, so it can be inspirational and help others who are standing or who are thinking about coming home to see the benefit in doing so. So we thank you for your time, and we're going to sign off and see you again next time.
And this is my wife, Adrienne. I'm Shon. You're listening to An Uncommon Love, because it's not as common as it used to be.
Yeah.
But if you trust God, He will come right back. Take care. Until next time, be blessed.
'Cause I know how it feels to be held in your embrace.